and I went back to dating a boy. Hi guys, to everyone who already knows me and watches my channel. I'm sure you've been waiting for this story for a long time. To everyone else who's new, my name is Zoe. This is my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be sharing my coming out story. Even though I've been out for like 6 years, it still feels weird to say some of the stuff out loud and share stuff that I've never shared before or never really felt comfortable sharing. I think when you come out, you always are used to hiding things about yourself from others, so you just continue to do so throughout life, and we need to stop doing that. We need to just be able to be ourselves and say how we feel and explain stories that we've been through that have made us the way that we are. So that's what I'm here to do finally today. After all this time, I thought I would just say it out loud, and what better way to do that than to post it on the internet, where I have hopefully a lot of supporters. I'm sure there's always going to be negatives, but I'm at that point in my life where I just am ready to say my story, and hopefully it helps others. When people ask you like, oh, how long have you known you were gay for, or when did you realize you were gay, or like what was the trigger point that made you realize, it's funny because when you first come out, you think of like a pivotal moment, like one time that was like where you finally admitted to yourself like, okay, I am this label. And it's really hard to come to terms with. Like, as some of you guys know, it is the hardest thing to go through, like realizing who you are and realizing that you fit into some of the labels that you've been terrified of for a really long time. But then when you start to think back over your life, you actually start to realize that there was so many other points. And for me, it can go as far back as like being 6 years old, and I only wanted to hang out with boys. Like, I literally did not want to hang out with the girls. I didn't find anything they were doing fun. I thought they were so odd to me. Everything they did, like characteristically wise, I was like, I thought something was wrong with them. I was like, why are they like that? Like, why are they being like that? And it's funny because I never actually at that point was like, oh, what's wrong with me? Until those particular girls, and I remember them so clearly when I was like 6 years old, the ones that I thought were weird for the things they liked started to bully me, like openly, publicly in front of other people. And that's when I started to be like, hold on, I don't do this to you. Like, I don't say to you, why are you doing that? Or why are you doing this? But they would say to me in front of other people and laugh at me, why you always hang out with boys? Are you a boy? And why do you play boy games? You play with boy things. And that's when it first started to get to me. And I think that was one of the first realizations of, okay, maybe I'm different. Like, maybe it's me. What's wrong with me? Like, being that young, being 6 years old and realizing those things, I think I was lucky to have my mum, who's such a just like tough kind of person, where she was like immediately like, no, like, f them, don't listen to what they say, do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want to be. And my mum was really supportive in that way, and I don't know, maybe she recognized what was going on or something. She taught me how to deal with bullies and stuff from a young age. I don't think she realized at that point that I would be gay someday, but she really did help me with that sort of stuff. So thank you to my mum and to all the parents out there who are supportive. Please understand that it is so important to be supportive to your child, and if you're a child and you need to speak to your parents or you feel like you can't, just find a parent figure. Like, you got to find somebody who can be that supportive parental figure for you, even if it's not your own parent sometimes. The labels that I've always been afraid of are like, people are going to call me a lesbian, or people are going to call me a dyke, or people are going to call me gay or queer. Pretty much any word labeled or associated with what I am to other people, I was afraid of. I didn't like any of it. I still don't. It's a weird feeling of like, even just me saying them out loud to you just then, sweating immediately. Like, I don't like those words and I'm not comfortable with them because they've been used in a negative way. But this coming out is also a chance for me to take back control of those words and realize and teach myself that they're my words And if I want to say I am this, I am that, I am gay, I am a lesbian, they're my words, and they should never have been used negatively against me to keep me in the closet, because that's exactly what happens. You grow up and you hear negative uses of those words, and it just makes you think, I never want to be that. And I remember being in like elementary school, like super young, and people use those words so negatively. Like, you see a woman with short hair and kids are like, ooh, she looks like a lesbian. And you hear that when you're younger and you're like, oh, okay, that must be a bad thing. And it's not a conscious realization of I don't ever want to be that, but they were used in a negative term that you think, I don't want to associate with those words. And you start to develop internalized homophobia 100% as a kid. Like, you use words saying like, oh, that's gay, or calling people the F word and stuff like that. I remember one time my friend and I were like 11 years old and we were laying on the ground and he was laughing about something, and I can't even remember what exactly he was doing. He was just being silly, but I said to him, that's gay. I said that. I remember this so clearly, and my teacher, she came over and we were laying on the ground and she leant over us and said, what did you just say? And I just immediately was like, she said it in a tone that was like the most I've ever been yelled at by a teacher, because it was so firm and she was so disappointed. And I was just like, oh, nothing. And she was like, did you just say that's gay? And I was like, yeah, like what's wrong with that? Because I genuinely had no idea. I just had heard that word be used in a way to say something was lame, and that's how I used it. And she was like, that's not what that word means, and you are never to use that word like that again. And I was like, whoa, like she's never spoken to me like that before. And so I went home and I told my mum, and she explained to me what the word meant and why you can't say that word. And then that was when she told me that my uncle was gay and how words like that affect him and stuff like that. And it just changed my world. Like, it just, I was opened up to a whole new perspective of understanding humans. I just feel like at that point I was so young and I was like, oh my god, that's a thing. Like, I had no idea at the time. Society suppresses us and represses our emotions and attractions and real feelings and everything, because we watch on TV and hear stories of how girls are supposed to be and how boys are supposed to be. And so my idea of what I was supposed to be like as a girl was altered by societal norms. And it wasn't until I was in acting school, I went to the New York Film Academy, and for anyone who's gone to acting school, you know that it's basically you standing in front of everybody naked, bearing your soul at all times, metaphorically, because you have to show like your true colors to people and go through these like crazy exercises to be able to get characters out of you, but then you actually realize what your own character is. And that's what happened to me, basically. The first time I realized that I was gay, I was doing a movement class, which is literally that, like doing moves. Like, we did dances and we did Tai Chi and we did pretending to be a cat for a day, and that's just how you get into character. And so I was in a movement class, and I don't know how it came out of me physically, but I just remember sitting on the ground and realizing, oh my god, I actually like girls. And it was so scary, but like also the best realization to be like, oh my god, this explains so many things. Obviously it came with so many scary ranges of emotion too though. Like, I was scared and wanted to throw up and didn't want to tell anybody, but I felt like I had to say something out loud. And so I turned to my brother, who had been out himself for 3 years, and I just said, Zach, I like girls. And there was somebody in particular who did make me realize it, an open gay girl who also was there, and I just was like, oh my god, yeah, that's what I'm into. And he was so excited because he was gay, and he was just like, oh my god, yes, another gay in the family. But for me, it was like just so scary because I just thought of all these things in my head that I felt like I had to do, because I felt like another societal norm is that when you realize you're gay, you have to like come out, which is also why I never did it. I never made this video. I never told my story because I was like, I don't have to come out. I'm just me. I'm Zoe. But the fact that it is so scary and sickening to still say this makes me realize that I do still have to do it, because I have to be able to say these things out loud. I remember after I had realized, leaving acting school and driving home and thinking, how am I going to tell my parents? How am I going to tell my friends? How am I going to tell anyone? I was so scared. And so I started to tell some people who I knew would be supportive at my acting school. I told a friend who was there that he, now that I realize now, was actually going through the same thing, because he also, I think at the same time, realized that he was gay, and now he is openly gay and is actually a massive TikTok star. I'm not going to tell his story, that's his thing to tell, but he was a really big rock for me at the time, because he, I could tell, was going through the same thing, but I don't think was as ready as I was. And so just sensing in him that he was going through something similar, I just thought maybe I can talk to him about it. And so I remember telling him that I think I'm bisexual, or I think I'm something else, and I didn't really know what it was by definition or titles, but I told him and he high-fived me and said, me too. And so we kind of came out to each other at the exact same time, and I remember just feeling so awkward, and we just kind of high-fived and then hugged and was like, okay, what now? And we were both so scared and freaked out, and I didn't really know who else to tell. I just started to tell other people at my acting college, but for me it was like my escape away from my real world. It felt like what I feel like when people come out on the internet to internet friends, and you keep it in that internet world and you don't actually tell your real world. That's kind of what it felt like at acting school, because everyone who I went to acting school with wasn't from my hometown. So I'd created this protective layer of support group in this dome of acting school where I could kind of be myself, and I came out slowly there over the 2 years. But I never actually told any of my friends in real life, never told anyone else in my family except for my brother. So nobody in my real life, when I went home, knew. And so it was this weird experience where I would go home, and it was so almost like disassociative of my real self, because I would still talk to boys while I was at home. So if I was at home, I was like straight presenting, like still talk to boys. At my job, nobody knew, none of my friends knew. But then when I'd go back to acting school, it was like I had this whole other life, because we were there 5 days a week. So Monday to Friday, it was kind of like college, where you'd go and that was your full life and focus, and people there knew. But then when I'd come home, and then on the weekends, I didn't hang out with those people really outside, because we all had our own friendship groups. I was straight at home and gay at college, and it was just this weird two worlds that I was living in. And it was really hard because I never talked to my friends from school, my hometown friends or my family, even about any of my acting school friends. It was like I had two different worlds that I was jumping between, and it was starting to get really hard, because I would have to lie to people and say, oh, I'm just working on a group project, but really I was going to this gay guy's house who I was friends with, who happened to live with a gay girl that I was talking to at the time. And so we would all kind of hang out, and it was like all the gays pretty much, and I was a different person when I was with them. But it was weird, because even when I was with them, that didn't feel like the real me at the same time. So a part of me was also still very in denial, because I still never admitted out loud, or even to myself. It was almost just like this fun, felt like bad thing I was doing in secret. It actually got like really bad, because I had a terrible experience with a girl who, she was confidently out to her whole world. But what I didn't realize at the time was she was going through her own coming out experience to her very unsupportive family. And so what she was going through was reflecting onto me, because she was using me as her rock and thought that we were going through this thing together, when now I realized we were going through something so separate and different. And I think she thought I was more confident in being out than what I was, because she'd been out for a long time. And so because she started to develop feelings for me and want to be in a relationship with me, it just scared me right back into the closet. I was like, no way, I am not being in an open public relationship with the same gender, no way. And I just reverted back and was like, I can't do this. And we had like a massive falling out. It was just a really bad experience, because I just became so scared and realized at the time, oh, that's not me, I don't want to be that. And so I actually then started to more associate with my real world outside of acting school, and around my school friends and family and stuff again that I was like straight presenting to, that I just convinced myself like, no, that's not actually me. That was just an experience that I went through. I'm not gay. I can't be gay. I don't like girls. And I went back to dating a boy. It was so hard because I thought that's what I had to do. At the time I was really into fitness, and so was he, and so my brain just kind of put two and two together, like, okay, common interests, you're a girl, he's a boy, you like the same stuff, you like hanging out with each other, this is how it's supposed to be. And so I got into like my first like serious relationship, but with a boy, and had to hide this experience that I just had with the same sex and with all these people that I just basically come out to. I ended up having falling outs with a lot of them, because it was like I kind of wanted to, once I finished acting school, I just wanted to get away from them, because they knew this secret about me, and I just was like, I can't be around these people. But I had convinced myself in my head that I wasn't friends with these people anymore for whatever reason, but they were all made up other reasons. But the real reason was I was gay, and they knew, and I didn't want to be around them because I didn't want the secret to get out. Basically, now I realize that's what it was. And so I disassociated from that part of my life and thought, no, that was just an experience, and fully went back to being straight. Wow, talking about this out loud is just like a weird... I've tried to film this video so many times, like over the years. I've really tried to tell this story. And it's weird to finally say it, like, out loud. Because obviously, if you already watch my channel, you know that I am out 100%. Publicly, everybody knows now. But talking about it out loud is hard, because it was a really hard experience. What I was up to. Okay, so yeah, I went back to dating a boy, and it was in such a dark time because I had just gone through this crazy, mentally insane experience and realization of myself. And then I started dating this guy who was just really not good for me mentally either, because he wanted a serious relationship. He was a little bit older than me, and he was very into the relationship and wanted to go through the motions of a serious relationship. Talking about marriage, talking about kids, talking about getting old. And I was like, I'm so young, this is so scary. And I convinced myself that it was just that I was young. Like, I was like, I'm too young, I don't want that sort of stuff, I don't want anything serious. But now I've realized that it was more so that I just wasn't into him and a relationship like that with a boy. And so it was really scary. But he was also very controlling and very emotionally manipulative, and I went through a lot of negative things with him that I realize now, looking back, were just so unhealthy and so toxic. And it wasn't until I was at a club one night with him for my birthday, and I wanted to stay out with my friends, and he wanted to go home, and we just got into this argument, and I was like, no, I want to be here with my friends. And he wanted to go home, and he was saying like, you know, when you're in a relationship, you do what your partner wants to do, and saying all these things to me. And I was like, I had had too much to drink. I didn't really realize what was going on, but I just was like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like, I don't want you to tell me what to do. But I think I also had this realization of like, I also don't want to go home with you. I don't want to be with you. And he kind of like pulled me aside, like physically, like grabbed my arm and like kind of like pushed me into the wall, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just started going off. I was like, do not touch me. Like, what the hell? Like, I knew that wasn't right. Like, I was like, you can't physically touch me like that. And so we got into this huge fight, and I was like, I just was like, I don't want to be with you. Like, started yelling at him, and I probably said some mean things as well, but I was just so mad that he had like physically kind of like pushed me. And I just remember so clearly he had this cup, like a plastic cup in his hand, and it was like I watched everything in slow motion, like when you get adrenaline, and I just watched him with this cup like go like this, and I kind of felt like Spider-Man. Like, I just felt like I like moved at the right time, and I in slow motion knew he was about to throw it, and he just like threw the cup as hard as he could like at the wall where my head was. And I like moved it and watched it, and it was like my life just flashed before my eyes. Like, I saw everything and was just like, this is wrong, and I don't want to be with you, and that was so wrong of you to do, and that is abusive, and get out of my life now. This immediately wanted him to completely disappear. And he went back to my house that night. He was there all the time, so that was like his kind of home. And so he went back there and was messaging me and telling me to come home, and I just messaged him and was like, do not be there when I get back. Do not ever talk to me again. Don't. It's like, it's done. You don't throw a cup at somebody. I was like, the way you treated me, like, no, we're not. It's done. Get out. That was probably the second last time I ever saw him, because the next time I think he just came and got his stuff. And yeah, luckily for me, I never had to see him again. Never heard from him again. Never. That was it. And I just remember the next few weeks, like, just sitting in my room, just crying and freaking out and having no idea what was going on with me mentally. I feel like the year or so after that is like such a blur. Like, I can't really remember everything that I went through, because I think like the trauma of it all, my brain has just suppressed. I just remember going through it all internally on my own. Like, I didn't really talk to anybody about it. Acting school was done, so all those people were back into their own lives, and we never all really saw each other again. And it felt like I was kind of like back to square one with having to admit to myself who I was, and admit to other people, because I didn't have any of those other people around anymore besides my brother, because I stupidly didn't tell anyone. Like, I should have told more of my close friends, who I know now especially obviously would have supported me, but I just couldn't say it out loud, and so I didn't. I just kept it in and kept going about life, having no idea who I was. And it wasn't until I had met another girl who I then dated that I came out with. So I publicly finally was able to tell all my friends when I had met someone who also was gay and that I started dating, because I was able to tell my friends. I was able to sit in the car with all my best friends. I remember one day just having 3 of them in the car and just saying, I have something to tell you. And I just kind of was like, I don't know where to start. But when I was at acting school, and they were like, what? Like, Knifer? That was ages ago. I'm like, yeah, I actually was with a girl back then. And they were just like, what? Like, there was just so much to tell, obviously, because I just told you guys the whole story, but I kind of explained everything to them. And then also had to then be like, also now there's another girl. And after I told most of my best friends, then I told my mum and my grandma. I remember walking out onto the back balcony and just saying, I need to tell you something. And they were like, okay. And I wasn't really like that scared to tell my parents, because like I said, my brother was already out, and my uncle, my mum's brother, was also gay as well. So I just kind of was like, I'm gay, and I'm gonna date a girl. And they both were just super supportive. My mum was like, you know, I don't care, and was really supportive. My grandma was just like, are you happy? Are you okay? And just asked me a bunch of questions. And I sat down with them, and then I cried, and I was like, I don't really know why I'm crying, because they were supportive about it. And then my mum asked me, she was like, do you want to tell your dad, or do you want me to tell him? And I just, for some reason, even though I knew my dad would be supportive, I just was like, oh, you can tell him. Because I just was done saying it out loud anymore. I didn't really want to keep saying it. And then after that, I just feel like I had positive experiences, because I had like a good support group. And so that's like the main thing that I always say to people when they ask me for coming out advice is like, start a support group. Like find one person you can tell and just grow it slowly. Because that was the thing that made me confident, was like having people who I knew supported me, but I also didn't really have to talk about it too. And then, yeah, and then I was out. And now I've been out ever since. And now I'm fully out and fully gay and have a beautiful girlfriend over there who I'm publicly out with. Obviously, you guys know if you already watch my channel.
I love you and I support you.
I love you. This was a really hard video to make.
I bet.
Like really hard, really hard to make, because it's hard to say that you're gay or you're a lesbian and you don't want to associate with those labels because you have such negative memories of them. But we all should be able to say like who we are and what we are based on our own timing, like what we want to say and how we want to say it, because a lot of the labels do feel negative because of things that we've been through. So you just have to admit them to yourself first and go from there. That's my coming out story. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. And I hope that if you're not out, you eventually are comfortable and feel safe to come out. And that's the end of the video. I'm so glad I finally made this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate the support and I love you guys so much. And tune in tomorrow for Bianca's coming out story, because we're gonna put up a lot of Pride content this month and I wanted this to be the first video that I put up to start the month off. So happy Pride, have daily pride, be proud of yourself daily. I'm proud of myself, and that's it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching.